Coming up on the show, the semifinals are set. We have our top 3 seeds and the 5th-seeded Cold Hearts advancing. We're going to break down how those teams got there. And we're also going to reveal who the Muffin Tops are playing. I thought about it today. It's basically a bowl game. So they have their own bowl game. We need a sponsor. Let us know. You can brand the whole thing out. They can win a trophy. They can win something cool, the winner of that game. We're going to reveal the Muffin Tops Bowl game, who they're playing, and who they called out, and how it went. So we get to break some news on the podcast. But Evien, Aidan, Trent coming up, and let's break down these quarterfinals. Let's see how everyone did, and then preview the semifinal matchups that will be taking place on Tuesday night. But first, let's play the intro song.
Yeah, this is the Legacy League. Tell me where your legacy be. Yeah.
I mentioned it in the open. Lob City Cold Hearts, Road Dogs, and Washed Up Boys. And we've seen these teams play because everybody kind of played everybody. And so we have some stuff to go off of when we're previewing these matchups for one of the first times. I mean, obviously the quarterfinals as well. But now we get to kind of see what happened the first time and see what's going to happen potentially the second time when those teams meet in the semifinals. Let's start with the Cold Hearts and Halfway Crooks, our closest game from the quarterfinals. It was a 6-point win for the Cold Hearts. A big second half. I mean, they won every quarter but the first quarter, looking at it now. But it was kind of even at halftime in a second half where they made a ton of shots, got a ton of rebounds, and won the game. And took it away from the Halfway Crooks, even without, one of their better players who was there in Carter Clifton, but not available for that game. They still get the win. They get ready to take on Lob City. But first, Evien, how did the Cold Hearts do it, and what flipped from that first half to the second half?
They shot pretty well from 3, 39% on the night, which that would definitely help you out. They were better at the stripe, and they out-rebounded the Halfway Crooks, so kind of just doing a little bit of everything just to get the job done.
The Cold Hearts had 7 offensive rebounds, and 5 of those must have came in the second half. So that explains kind of part of that flip, right? And it felt like 5. It felt like maybe all 7. They were a lot more one and done and not making as many shots for whatever reason in the first half. And then in the second half, not only were they making more threes, they were then getting the rebounds when they were missing some of those threes. And just from watching the game back and watching some of the highlights, Trent, one of the games you were wrong about. We were having a good time. I threw you under the bus to the Washed Up Boys when you were stationed at the scoreboard, so that was fun. We'll get to that in a second. But yeah, listen, nobody's perfect, Trent. But the Cold Hearts, what impressed you from them on Tuesday night?
They closed the game strong. I felt like it was me and Aidan at the bench and stuff like that, and I'm like, have they missed a free throw to close this game? It seemed like they went perfect down the stretch, and that's what a good team does, right? Like you close out these games. I believe it was the Cold Hearts. They lost the game before that. They were down 4, or they were up 4, and they made a mistake, and so they came into the playoffs. And like I said, I had Halfway Crooks, and they lost to the Cold Hearts, but shout out to them, man. They came to play. They came prepared. You had 3 players in double digits, and Justin Bianchi, who I feel like every three-pointer he attempted just went in. He had some big shots, and they just played a team game, man. So I definitely didn't expect the Cold Hearts to win. They for sure called me out in the postgame, and I said, hey, man, you shut me up, man. You won this game, and you definitely have a tough one next week, but for sure going to give them credit, man. That was a massive victory. And then I'll say briefly about the Crooks. Their players just didn't show up, man. I definitely wanted to see playoff Jared, and Nick was attempting a lot of three-pointers trying to put his team on his back, but Cold Hearts, credit to them, and they played great defense and forced one shot.
Yeah, you mentioned it. Justin Bianchi, 21 and 8, led the way. Steven Soulier with 19 and 6 with 4 threes. Danny Hollowell hit a 3 in the second half. I notably remember that one and really got it going. And Tom DeAndrea, 9 and 16 rebounds, controlled the glass. So, a good effort by them. 36 rebounds. You mentioned it, out rebounding the Halfway Crooks. Nick Lemoyne, only 12 points, and Terrence Gallo with 10. Jared Hansen with 10. So, Aidan, a tale of 2 halves, right? And I think that it's funny. It kind of started to flip in the second quarter a little bit, but not as drastic as what we saw in the third and fourth quarters, and especially kind of that fourth quarter, because it was still close heading into that fourth quarter. If I do math super quickly, I know it was 4 at halftime. Yeah, and the Cold Hearts were up 1, or it was a tied game going into that fourth quarter. So fourth quarter was the difference. But yeah, what stood out to you, Aidan, and playoff basketball? Good call out by Trent, because we did talk about the Cold Hearts, not having the game because it's never over, but making some mistakes in that last week of the regular season. Didn't make those mistakes and made their free throws in this one to seal the win.
Yeah, like you just said and Trent said, we're both sitting at the table. They only missed 3 free throws the entire game. And I think those three missed free throws were in the first 2 quarters. Like, they came in prepared. And you're talking to the rest of the interns were on the bench. We're like, I don't know why none of us else picked the Cold Heart except for Brandon, because they had an abysmal last week, and they turned it around. Even without Carter, they were able to get the win. The thing about the Crooks is, I think the Cold Hearts were able to get this win because the Crooks let them shoot open threes. The defensive side of the ball for the Crooks wasn't really there, so it left some open threes and it left some open shots. And I think the Cold Hearts they kind of took it. It was just kind of their game. And they match up with Lob City, who gave them their first loss and kind of let them go into that spiral for the next round. So it's going to be interesting to see how they play, but a great performance from them. Free throws were on point. They must have practiced them. If they didn't, great for them, but they need to continue to play winning and competitive basketball.
We'll get to it. We'll have you guys pick these matchups now that we know them and kind of give your X factor for the game and kind of what you're looking for in these semifinal matchups, kind of what will be the turning point in those 2 matchups. But Cold Hearts advance. It's their first playoff win after they lost under a different team name, but some of the same guys last season, so they do advance. And they will take on, we'll just kind of stay in that side of the bracket. They take on the top-seeded, undefeated Lob City, who took care of the Gym Rats. And, just classic Lob City, and they get the job done. 79-56. Lob City really in control for all of the game, and that's just from watching how they've played. They were able to kind of get whatever they wanted and kind of realize that early, but they do defeat the Gym Rats. Almar Sabat with 35. He went off 14 of 17 from the floor. Noah West with 17 and 11. And Cody Crawford, 11 points. Not his best shooting night, but 18 rebounds, and really was doing a little bit of everything for Lob City in this one. We'll go to Evien, and maybe we'll just go Aidan or Trent, and we'll kind of keep mixing this up. But Evien, Lob City, your first time seeing some playoff Lob City, but they had to, the Gym Rats, so you can talk about this, Evien. The Gym Rats, had flashes of being able to hit some shots. I mean, shout out to Brandon Whitman, who, 5 threes, and even Cody after the game was like, I'd never seen him shoot like that. Like, usually he takes that many threes, and we are sometimes critical of that because of how good he is going to the basket. He was making them in this one, so that kind of opened some things up for them when they really needed some points. So 26 points for Whitman. Cam Grilly, it's so funny, and I'll say it really quick. Every season, some guys on the Crooks went through this. A lot of new players go through this. By the time week 8, 9 in the playoffs come around, these newer guys are finding their shot, because now it's been 2 months of doing this, and their game starts to open up, and you get to see more of what they can do, and then the season's over. So that was kind of the thing for Cam Grilly. He was able to kind of hit some of those shots and get more comfortable with 20 points in this one. But Evien, Lob City, what'd you like about them, and how'd they do it in the quarterfinals?
I feel like every game I've seen with Lob City, someone completely different has like 30-something points. And I think that just shows like why they're the top seed. Gym Rats actually started out pretty well. I thought the game would be closer, especially in the first quarter. Brandon Whitman was hitting his shots, same with Cam Grilly as well. But I think anytime you're out rebounded, basically doubled out rebounded, Lob City with 49 to Gym Rats 25, that's really just going to be the story of the game right there. I think that just gives them more opportunities. Even Noah West, I don't think he had the greatest shooting night, but still just ended up with a 17 and 11, just really helping out his team like that. And same with Cody Crawford, also getting 18 boards. That's impressive. So anytime they're going to have a performance like that, it's going to be hard to beat Lob City.
and tons of blocks really all around for Lob City. So Noah, I know what it says there, and I'll go back. I don't think that's right, but definitely 3, 4, 5, 6 blocks for him. You can almost picture him where he comes flying, from behind to erase a shot. So they were all over on defense. But Trent, Lob City, I mean, I'm pretty sure you picked him. I think, did we all? Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I did. I was correct on this one. I'm gonna take that. But I feel like we talk about Noah West a lot, as we should. I mean, he's an incredible basketball player, but it takes more than one player to win a championship. And I just want to give a lot of credit to Elmore. I believe that's how you say his name. I mean, this dude from summer, he was only averaging 9 points a game, to this year he's averaging 24 points a game. I mean, that's a massive leap. And he just dominated. I mean, his field goal percentage is 80%. Like, when you see that, it kind of seems like 2K numbers, like not realistic. He took what the defense gave him. You know what I mean? He just kept driving. He knew that's his strong suit, and he knew Jim Rats couldn't stop him. So, and he's really humble, man. Like, I interviewed him at the end of the game, and he was just like, doing what's best for the team, for whatever it takes us to win. So definitely looking forward to keep watching Lob City. And I mean, Noah West, there's just sometimes he doesn't even try, and he still gives you a double-double. That's how amazing this dude is, man. Defensively, offensively, if he needs a bucket, he knows he can get a bucket. And Cody Crawford, man, 5 for 19. We're definitely going to need you to play a little bit better heading into the next round. But I know he's a vet. I know you've been here forever. So definitely not doubting him for sure. So congratulations on Lob City on the victory.
Well, and we've seen it for stretches, and I don't mean in this game, I kind of mean throughout the season, where Noah West maybe turned it on to as close to kind of full effort, but that's not fair because he's always trying, but just pushing what he can do because he kind of had to for his team, right? We didn't maybe see it a lot in this game. We've seen it throughout the season a little bit, and I expect to see it more in these next 1 or 2 games for Lob City, where you think you think you've seen Noah West. We may not have seen what he can really do yet, is my point, over a full game, if he's having to really, really kind of put his impact, on the game for Lob City. So, and I'm sure it'll be entertaining as it always is with Noah. But shout out to the Gym Rats. The amount of close games, we can try to do this super quickly, but they lost to the Washed Up Boys by 2 in week 1. They lost to the Halfway Crooks by 2 in week 2. The RI Warriors game was kind of one of their first tests and kind of fell there. Lost to Lob City by 13 in week 4. They beat the Muffin Tops. They lost to the Air Mambas by 9. We can kind of keep going. They had their bye week. It was a 5-point loss to the Cold Hearts. I mean, you could do the shoulda, coulda, woulda, for a lot of teams, but they easily could have had 3 wins, 4 wins, right? And so that's kind of how close sometimes this is. And then, Aidan Viveros goes down, and they could have used him in this game, especially in some of those other games we talked about. So I'd like to talk about them too a little bit. But so that's our top part of the bracket, Lob City and the Cold Hearts. Those teams met. Now you're really putting me on the spot. They meet, week 2, and it was a 13-point win for Lob City. So we will revisit that box score when we preview the matchup, and I'll kind of go over that more closely. But we get a rematch from week 2 in the top part of the bracket. Let's get to the bottom part. We talked about it earlier, the Washed Up Boys. Famously, I gave out Trent's social security number, damn it. I was like, he's right here. He's the one. But they do defeat the Air Mambas in advance for a semifinal rematch against the Road Dogs, which is the same matchup they faced in last year's semis. So we get to kind of look at that game a little bit, but it's different. And then they also played this season. But it is the Washed Up Boys advancing. I have to scroll down. 75-58. The Washed Up Boys get the win. They were in a 1-point game after the first quarter, and Trent was kind of doing one of these. He was, got the evil hands going on in the smirk. And then the Washed Up Boys, the early start time, they, were getting warmed up, and then they got warmed up. And we saw kind of some of what they can do with the defense, with the transition points, a lot of maybe what they've been missing in these past couple weeks where they've struggled flat out, and they've said it. So I don't mind saying that because that's the truth. But in this one, let's get to their stats. 11 for 29 from three, so kind of right on that lower mark of where you'd like to be, but the three-point attempts were there, and we're open again. 56% from the floor shooting for them and really able to get wherever they wanted. Keshawn Harrison, 19 and 5, Hendel Leroy with 12, and Leroy with 10 and 11. So we kind of had a little Leroy sighting in this one, which is always nice for this team. They're going to need him next round to show up for sure. Keon Lawrence, 18 points. He had a good season for the Air Mambas. We don't talk enough about him, but I just like he does a little bit of everything. Driving, defense, rebounding, blocking shots. Luis Ramirez with 17 and Mario Valerio with 15. All right, back to Evien first again. The washed up boys. What'd you see that gives you some hope? Because you don't make the pick yet, and you can always change because I know we did some predictions last week, so you can take what you saw and kind of maybe change your semifinal picks in a second. But what'd you see that you liked, Evien, in this one?
I love the fact they had 20 assists. Just sharing the ball all around. Basically, they had everyone show up, and I think that's always going to help, especially in the playoffs. Even if someone is not having the best shooting night, they have the next man up. Compared to what the Air Mambas was just the starting lineup that had to play the entire game, and sometimes that's going to just tire you out. But again, they shot great from three, and I think just dishing the ball out just like that is going to help them win games.
And I do want to shout out Tyrone Mullings, who's, let's see how many games he's played in. 6 games. And so I think he's gotten more comfortable as well. He falls into that category of kind of getting these reps now, and you've seen it over the past couple weeks. Not even so much the shot, but just all those extra things. Being in the right spot for the rebound, cutting and getting an easy layup. And that other dimension for a team like this who has a shot creator in Hendel Leroy, who has a great three-point shooter in Keshawn Harrison, Leroy Brown's doing his thing. Like, they need pieces like that to maybe not need the ball but kind of fill in. We'll save Trent for last because I have to actually get everyone in on this one just to kind of, we have to get to Trent. But Aidan, the washed up boys, what else do you need to see from them? And not to preview it so much, but they're getting back into form, and it was a close loss last year in the playoffs to a similar but different Road Dogs team. I realize that's contradicting. I get it, but they were still the Road Dogs. What stood out and just your washed up boys take as they get ready for a what should be a good semifinal?
I think what stood out to me the most was that every single player got up at least 3 shots. Now, they also shot 56% from the field. They were confident enough because I believe Keshawn, Tyrone, and Hendel all missed the first quarter because they came a little later, and I think that's what the Air Mambas saw then. They're like, okay, maybe they're not here. And then they get in the game, and they'll, only shot the ball 7 times. But he makes big shots. 12 points, that's a lot lower for him than we're used to. But I think they need to just continue playing the game they want to play. They looked a lot better than the last couple weeks, the last disastrous couple weeks. But they were efficient and intensity, defensive intensity. I don't know who was chirping, what was happening, but this was the most kind of locked in I've ever seen Leroy. And it was my first experience seeing him locked in. And, he can go to the rim whenever he wants. And I think he's one of the best perimeter defenders that they have. If you watch the game, he's always on guarding the person who has the ball, no matter what. He's also always stopping them or causing some type of thing. He's on the ground a lot of the times, trying to fight for the ball and just do the gritty plays that don't show up in the box score. They need to just continue to play the game that they want to make it back to the finals.
And a lot of what you said, I think it starts with defense for them, right? And so I think that was kind of the issue in that Lob City game is they weren't able to set up that defense. It's a trickle-down effect. When you're not scoring and Lob City's able to get some momentum, you're not able to get set up to then get the stop to then help your offense, right? It's like threefold for them, especially. Obviously, that works for almost any team. If you can stop the other team and you can score, that's the dream, right? But especially for this washed up boys team, we saw it in this game where they were able to kind of get some turnovers, get some stops, get some rebounds, and get out in transition. That's when they're at their best. Trent, just go ahead. I mean, and I know it's all in good fun, obviously, but picking against them, right? And so now they kind of get to use you as a little motivation, which is always a good thing for a team to have. But Did they surprise you in this one, Trent?
I wasn't impressed at all, to be honest. Like I said, they came into the playoffs struggling, and let's be honest, their first round matchup was a winning. Like they were the favorites to win this game. Without their best players, with their best players, they was always going to win this matchup. No offense to Air Mambas. I mean, they kept this game competitive throughout. The score says different, but the score was pretty close throughout. Watching this. But I will give credit where credit's due. I did have them losing this game. They won. But Leroy, man, I mean, defensively he was awesome. He was talking, he was chirping, and those little chirps get your team more pumped up, and they just started turning up and playing washed-up boys basketball. My concern is, and I know we could talk about it after, is the next round matchup. It's like I just want to see. I'll keep it for after. Keep it the viewers ready for what I got to say. But like I said, they won the game, and we'll see what happens next.
That's called a tease. We love it. Let's get to that team who they are facing, the defending champions. We save literally the defending champs, so the best for last here. In their quarterfinal matchup with the RI Warriors, they won by 40. Let's get to that, and then we're going to let Trent continue on his concerns for the washed up boys. 94-54. The Road Dogs get the win. A huge first quarter. Came out hot, 25-9, and then didn't lose a quarter, kept building the lead, and then the fourth quarter were able to build on that lead. So it was, as you know, it was always kind of in that double digits and up margin for most of the game as they started strong and kept it moving. Balanced scoring for sure. 6 players with at least 12 points, led by Shaq Ardrey with 19, Kareem Cooper with 16, Kevin Views with 15, Lyons, Rashid Sanchez, Jalen Ardrey, the other 3 in double figures. The RI Warriors, 8 of 31 from 3. That's like almost not enough threes for them, so I don't know what the heck was going on. But Kevin Vietor, a quiet night, 9 points, and we talked about it. They were going to need him to go off, right? And that just didn't happen for whatever reason. Credit to most likely the Road Dogs for not allowing that to happen throughout the game and not let them get comfortable. Back to Evien. I love it. I love the flow we got going on. The Road Dogs in this one started out hot, looked good. 9 of 20 from 3, but 66% from the floor. So able to attack. Kareem Cooper, you can see it. Shaq Ardrey, you can picture it. Those guys getting to the hoop and taking advantage of a smaller RI Warriors team compared to the Road Dogs. I mean, a lot of teams are smaller compared to the Road Dogs, but what besides making and scoring more points, Evien, what did the Road Dogs do well?
You said it, they had 6 guys in double figures, but something that even just shows more to me is the fact that every single one of them shot over 50% from the floor, and that's impressive. That's going to win basketball games no matter who you face. Obviously, the Rhode Island Warriors, this was their first round matchup. Road Dogs are expected to win, but anytime like everyone is shooting that well, it's going to be hard to beat. And the Rhode Island Warriors, they definitely needed Kevin Vietor to go off for a little more than 9 points. They played okay. I think you're right. You would think they'd shoot way more threes. They definitely need to make more of them for next time. But I think the Road Dogs are just going to be really, really hard to beat against the washed up boys. It's going to be a great next round. We'll keep it to later, but that should be a good game.
It's coming up, and it was the washed up boys who won in the regular season, which is how we got into this position of the 2 and 3 seed. That was literally the difference. One game in the standings. Aidan, which player? I'll put you really on the spot, and then we'll go to Trent. We've talked about the keys. We talked about kind of everyone who, the leading scorers for the Road Dogs, but you can go Jalen Ardrey. You can go Rashid Sanchez. Those guys contributed tonight, and I think are one of the big differences for this team, where they literally are their 5th or 6th. Best player isn't always fair because everyone can have a good night and kind of make that statement true or false. But they have so many pieces. Like when those guys are also able to be consistent and give you those points, that's where it gets to be like Lob City of old, right? Where we would see it with Lob City, where once upon a time they had 8 or 9 guys showing up, and their 8th or 9th guy was better than your 3rd guy. And it's like, oh boy, this is going to be a long night if this guy's coming in and is fresh and able to do what he can do. So that's what the Road Dogs do. So, which one of those guys, Aidan, stood out and is most crucial for this team?
I think they both equally stand out, but I'll shift it to Jalen because Jalen will play 5 to 7 minutes maybe. I don't see him in there a lot, but whenever he gets the ball, he's shooting and he's making his shot. Now, he did tweak his ankle a little bit, so he left. But again, like you just said, when you have a whole team that can shoot 50% from the field, can score, and can actually play defense and play ball, it's a game changer. And I think the Road Dogs, they kind of shifted their game plan because Dell's been out the last couple weeks. That's their second big man. So now they really only have Devon, which is fine because Devon's a beast. But they've changed the way they've played. And I'll talk about Anthony Lyons this game. Sometimes some quiet nights, and he's always playing defense. But he shot 7 threes. I thought he shot a little more or a little less, but anytime he shot, it looked like he was going in. And I think they had to get their guys in the right mindset to, we're in playoff basketball. We're going to the semis. They're playing a team that we lost to in the regular season, that they played last year in the playoffs too. And it's just kind of, I think they're trying to get all their guys ready. And like you said, they're 8-9 deep. When your whole team can score, and like you just said with Lob City back of old, if your sixth, seventh guy is as good as their third guy, you're a great team in this league.
The size, Trent, and you can kind of touch on this for the Road Dogs without previewing too much, but just in general. It didn't really come into play this game, and even just looking ahead. So I guess we are going to kind of start the preview, but not officially. I think that's one of the keys for the washed up boys, right? No Del Butler, so they don't really have a second big guy. They're still, Kareem can be that center. I mean, there really isn't positions as much, but Kareem can guard the other team's, biggest player, and because of who they're playing, it probably doesn't hurt them too much. We've had teams previously where, imagine 2 or 3 Devon Baileys on the same team, where sometimes you play 2 of them at the same time, and sure, you're losing some shooting, but that's a problem rebounding. It's a problem on off. Like, you can create some mismatches that way. There really isn't a team that can do that. The washed up boys don't really have a super big lineup. Lob City is going to try, and then foul trouble always comes into effect, and that's kind of where I was going to go with this. But even Lob City isn't the biggest of teams this year. They will challenge you at the rim, and so they kind of make up for some of the lack of size with rim protection and athleticism, and we'll get to that. Victor Cashew Jr., Noah West, like they have defenders who can defend down low. But how much of that comes into effect, and what kind of different lineups, Trent, can the Road Dogs use that maybe you saw, in the quarterfinals that you like, that you think they might need?
Well, they may not be the tallest, but they got big bodies over there. When I say they got big bodies, Kevin Views is a tank. Also, your not former teammate, but I'm missing his name right now. Oh, Shaq Audrey. Shaq Audrey is one of those guards that's like, he's like a power forward to me. Like, he just uses his strength and bodies a lot of the guards. Like, those 2 guys alone right there could help with the size. And also you got a grown man in Kareem, who's a monster. Kareem Cooper, who is intensity on the defensive end, his energy, and he's great offensively too. Like, I wouldn't be too worried. They can go any lineup they want. They could space out the floor. Obviously, he hasn't played the best this year for the Road Dogs. I'm sorry, and I forgot his name. I'm so sorry, guys. So sorry. He can space out the floor at the end of the day and shoot the 3. So they have good lineups, and they're deep. They have their experience. They won championships. They have players that won championships, and I'm looking forward to them, man. I'm really looking forward to see what they can do.
Well, we'll get to it in a second, but this is for Aidan and some former players who have played in past seasons. The type of a team that would probably give the Road Dogs the most trouble is like a 2023 Lob City team with a Carl Lee, Nuri Mahmoud, Victor Cashew Jr., and they even had some other bigger guys, like a Colin Burns, where it's like 4 bigger guys who can also handle. I'll do it. I'll do a 2023 Halfway Crooks team where it was a Devin Devon Pina, a Dom Langston, a Jeff Winchell, which is like 3, 6'3", 6'4" guys who would then create some mismatches. We don't really have a team like that this season. And that's just kind of how this goes sometimes. So for the Road Dogs, and I would expect Del Butler to potentially be back any game now. I don't know anything for sure, but I'm sure if he can go, he's going to play, right? And even just taking some minutes, taking some fouls, protecting the rim, that can be beneficial in a one-game playoff. But it's fun to kind of bring in some older teams that it's going to be all about matchups, right? And so let's do it. We're going to save the washed up boys Road Dogs for last, but first, I lied. First, let's break some news here. We need a good name. So anybody, the Muffin Tops Bowl, that's not fun. It's fine. We'll figure it out. We can do the breakfast theme, the cereal bowl. I don't know. We'll Muffin Tops. Get it? I'm trying here. So the Muffin Tops, if you guys don't remember, they did not qualify for the playoffs, but they get to call out one of the teams that lost and is not in the semifinals to challenge them to a bowl game. And it's good because like bowl games, they mean something, but like it's not part of the playoff. So I was like, oh, this is good. This is exactly what this is. It's a bowl game. So last time I heard, it was a 5-1 vote in favor of, let's use it, the Air Mambas. They have called out the Air Mambas who have accepted, okay? And it was a 5-1 vote. The other vote was for the RI Warriors, which is where I thought they should go, or I don't know. I mean, whatever. We've recapped that game plenty, and they had their chances. But Jake Harvey, their captain, said that the Air Mambas, I'm not going to quote it, but they were the first team they ever played over the summer. And it was a tough lesson when they joined the league, which is fair. But they've always had a good friendship. The Mambas have cheered them on. And it would be an honor to play against such a great bunch of guys, quote unquote, from the Muffin Tops. So we will have on Tuesday night the Muffin Tops and Air Mambas at 7:15, followed by, it will be, I'm going out of order, Washed Up Boys and Road Dogs at 8:15, and then Lob City and Cold Hearts at 9:15. So I actually want to start with that game. We can have you guys give some analysis. I won't do the one-word game because Trent hates it, and it's all good. This is Trent's world. We're just living in it. It's fine. I'm semi-kidding, but it's all good. But no, these games are deserving, and there's only 2, so we obviously have a little more time of some analysis, right? And kind of we've seen these teams before. So we talked about it. Lob City and the Cold Hearts played in Week 2. My analysts, if you guys want to go pull up the stats, you don't have to, but I am pulling them up. They're on the website. It was a 13-point win. It was a pretty even second half, and it was a 9-point lead at halftime that basically Lob City was able to maintain, give or take, throughout the second half. Victor Cashew Jr. had 22 and 9, Cody Crawford with 16, Almar Sabat with 15. No Noah West in that Week 2 matchup, notably. So take that for what it's worth. Steven Soulier with 20 and 4 of 6 from 3. Carter Clifton with 11. And no Justin Bianchi. So, interesting how both of those teams will have, we're going to have to pretend that everyone shows up for every team. There's no other way to do this. So, ideally, the Cold Hearts will have all of their guys, depending on Carter Clifton's injury. So, they'll have Justin, I would imagine. And Lob City, most likely, will have Noah West and all of their guys, I'm sure, hopefully, Victor Cashew Jr. as well will be there. So we'll mix it up. Trent, you can go first. So break it down and you can make your pick. But yeah, should be. I'm excited. I'm excited for this one and to kind of see these teams kind of come around full circle. Go ahead.
Well, you said it first, man. I mean, when you got an MVP candidate, top 3 at least in the conversation, and Noah West not playing, that's a difference maker right there. But it also shows you how great Lob City is. It doesn't matter what lineup they got out there. It doesn't matter what players are playing. They're going to always win and dominate. It could be a 4-man lineup. It can be no Noah West. It could be no Victor Cashew, which has missed a few games. They're still going to find a way to win, which is very, very impressive. I mean, 22 points, 8 for 13 that game. I think the Cold Hearts, they're a good team, but there's levels to this. There's different tiers to this, and I think Lob City's to this tier, and Cold Hearts are just below them. And I think Noah West and this team, with just their experience, and Cody Crawford knowing he didn't have the greatest game last week, they're going to come out and try to make a statement. And it's going to be tough for the Cold Hearts to slow down Noah West or even Al Moore. I mean, Al Moore last week is the one that dominated pretty much for this team, putting 30-plus points up. So they just have so many scorers, and they got players that play their role. And that's what I like. I mean, Josh Smith doesn't put up the best stats, but he's out there, he's communicating with his team, getting those clutch offensive rebounds and getting easy putbacks and dunks and stuff like that. This is a complete team. I think Lob City wins this game pretty easily, to be honest with you. I just think the experience and they just have the better talent throughout. And that's nothing against the Cold Hearts. The Cold Hearts are a good team. They just came off a good victory. But like I said, there's different tiers to this stuff, and I just don't think the Cold Hearts can really compete with Lob City.
All right, so that's a pick for Lob City. Stick with me on this one, okay? One of the matchups that's already coming to my mind is Tom DeAndrea versus insert Lob City person here, right? And it might be Victor Cashew Jr. or Josh Smith early. I would imagine Noah West at times. They're just going to switch everything. And Tom has had a good season and has been able to really, control the paint for the Cold Hearts. What Tom can do on offense for the Cold Hearts, I'm not sure is enough to overcome the mismatch that it's going to be, because who's he going to guard, right? And so that's where, when I talked about the switchability or no team really being big this year, Lob City can most likely still defend him well enough to make it difficult. He's still going to get probably 13 rebounds and 15 points, right? He's a good player, Tom DeAndrea. But that's one of the matchups I can already see Lob City going at, right, Evien? And it's like, all right, so Tom, you're going to guard Victor. All right, he's going to shoot threes on you, right? Like now you're going to have to come out, and now we can kind of cut off of that, and there's no one at the rim, right? Not really going to want to have him guarding Noah. He guards Almar. I think Almar's a little too quick for him, and Cody will find a way as well to go by him, right? And so, you start to go zone against Lob City. It's not my favorite thing to do. I've tried it. It doesn't work because they can also, they'll make you pay for that as well. That's for the Cold Hearts to figure out, right? It doesn't mean they can't win. It doesn't mean it's already over. If they make enough shots and can get some stops and figure out a way to kind of combat that. But Evien, you can kind of take it from here and make your pick. But I think that's already like, who's he guarding? What's Lob City doing? And, it's Cody said it when I was sitting with him. It's always about the matchups and the mismatches, right? And that's the first easiest one that the Cold Hearts are going to have to solve, Evien.
For sure. I think the last couple weeks from Lob City has really kind of just showed me that like anybody can just go off. They don't have to rely on one person. And I think for opposing teams, like that's kind of hard to just like scheme it like a defense against that, because you really don't know who's going to go off. Whereas the Cold Hearts, they kind of need their best players like Justin Bianchi just like to have a game to win against Lob City. So for that reason, I'm going to take Lob City. I think they're just, even though everyone doesn't come, they are like deep in terms of like what they bring to the court. So I'm going to go with Lob City, I think, pretty clearly.
All right, Aidan, we've seen it. We've seen it time and time again. Lob City back in the semifinals against this Cold Hearts team. You can talk about some other matchups, go wherever you'd like, but I'm interested. I'm interested to see how this goes for sure, because the Cold Hearts are playing well. They did not have, their perfect first half in that quarterfinal matchup, and still found a way to overcome that and turn it around and make shots. And so when that's happening, that's, when they're at their best, and they'll have to kind of figure some of that out on the fly against Lob City and whatever they throw at them. But they, on the other end, Aidan, can find some mismatches too, right? If they can work that post and get the offensive rebounds they did in this quarterfinal matchup because of Tom DeAndrea, having to dominate and get those rebounds, that can give them second and third chances and kind of help even some things out.
I'll say this. I think I'm going to pick Lob City, and I'll explain, but I think, like we said, they last met 2 months ago in week 2. No Noah and no Justin for their respective teams. And I think that's going to change a lot, because like you talked about, Tom can control the paint, but who's he really going to defend? Because not a lot of Lob City members, they don't live in the paint like he usually does. And Lob City, I'm pretty sure they've only had 5 guys this whole year. We talk about it all the time, but they play winning basketball. And I think the key to this is, I've noticed a lot with Lob City. I don't want to try and give their game plan away if that's what it is, but I like to think that they come into these games and they kind of either pick who they want to run the offense through, or they just kind of let the game dictate how it is. And like you said, Cody's kind of a passing savant and just knows where everybody is at all times. And we saw it this week against the Gym Rats. He got a little angry because he was getting bumped. And when you see Cody get that intensity, Cody's going to turn up. Now, he didn't have the best shooting night, but he's going to turn up, bring that intensity. Victor Cashew will also bring that intensity if he shows up. And I think the key for the Cold Hearts is, like we said, week 2 is the last time they met. And I think every single one of their teammates or members has grown into this league. So it's a tough task to play Lob City in the first 3 weeks of the season because they're the juggernaut and they're used to being here. But playing them early in the season is actually kind of good for you because you get them early on and then you can kind of watch the rest of their games and kind of see what you did wrong and what Lob City does in order to go undefeated and have the winningest record in league history, I believe. And I really like this matchup. I think it'll be closer than the rest of us think just because Noah will be there for Lob City, hopefully, and Justin Bianchi will be there. And Steven Soulier has grown into the number 2 role on the Cold Hearts, and that's a great 1-2 punch in the backcourt with Soulier and Bianchi. And going back to Tom had arguably his worst game when they played Lob City, only 4 points, but he still had 13 rebounds. So even if he's not scoring, he's going to control the glass, and I'm very interested to see how the game plays out this upcoming semifinals.
Yeah, all right. Everyone's picking Lob City, but yeah, I'm interested, and it's a semifinal for a reason, right? And so these teams, my rule of always, it's so funny. Like 2 of the 3 are usually close, and so we'll see. Sometimes it's 2. I'm talking about the 2 semifinals and the final, right? So it's somewhere there's a blowout, but it always is surprising on where that kind of ends up being, and you really never know. Not that we're predicting blowouts here, or they're all close games. They all can always be close games. That's the dream. All right, so Lob City. Oh, what I was going to say, you talk about getting Lob City early. The first team All Talk Sports played in the summer, they showed up to the gym on week 1, was Lob City. And so kind of comes full circle where it was the first team that group ever played. And it's all right. We walked in the gym. They were there very early, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we can't wait to win today." I'm like, "Good luck, guys!" And it was Lob City, and that's just new team syndrome. That's nothing against them. That happens every season, right? But they played Lob City, and we're like, "Oh crap!" and have grown tremendously since then to now be facing them again in the semifinals. So a good spot to cap that one and bring it full circle. All right, the next one. The Trent Bowl, I don't know if that has a nice ring to it, but no. Washed Up Boys and the Road Dogs, we talked about it, a rematch from last year's semifinals. Let's pick it for this year. These teams met, we talked about it in week 4, 67-58, a close game throughout, a competitive game. Kareem Cooper had 36 in that one, and no one else hit double figures. And for the Washed Up Boys, Hendra LaRolle with 23 and Leroy Brown with 14. Kayshawn Harrison with 11 and was 2 of 8. And, 7 of 21 from 3 for the Washed Up Boys, 7 of 19 for the Road Dogs. But that's not even necessarily the key, which I want you guys to kind of get into, because 9 steals for the Washed Up Boys I think is something to notice, and 6 more turnovers for the Road Dogs compared to the Washed Up Boys. We talked about how that gets their offense and their transition going and feeds into that pace. Trent first. It's all good. You didn't even think the Washed Up Boys would be here, and now here we are. But you said you had a concern, and you teased it. So what is your concern? And then you can make your pick, which I think, you kind of have to double down now, so it's too late, and we already know who you're going to pick. But your key/concern in this one, Trent.
Well, my concern for the Washed Up Boys is like I said, they were favored to win this matchup. And like I said earlier, the score was closer than the final score was at the end of the day, right? There was a point in time where I don't want to say Washed Up Boys were panicking, but it got close. It was I think a 9-point lead, maybe in the third or fourth, and the team was like, "Yo, they're close." You know what I mean? It's getting closer and closer, and they didn't. That team, no offense to that team, they're a great team, but they should not compete against the Wassup boys seeding perspective, like the seeding wise, how talented this team is. It should have never been that close. When you look at the Road Dogs, they know they're the favorites to win that matchup, and they made a statement victory. You know, like you got to come out. It's the playoffs. You got to come off strong. And I feel like the Wassup boys early in the game, if you start off that slow against the Road Dogs, you can't just slowly creep back. That's a really very good team. I mean, you could talk from top to bottom. You got champions all over that roster. And so I think that's my little concern with them. Slow starts. Sometimes them not taking it serious. Sometimes they goof off a little bit during the game, and you can't do that. You just can't do that. People are here to win and compete, and I'm not saying the Wassup boys are not, because they're definitely tough with each other too. But their players have to lock in, and I just look at depth purposes. I think Road Dogs are deeper compared to Washed-Up boys. Mo hasn't necessarily played well this year. No, and I'm not. This is not a bad thing when I say this. I hear him talking more than him scoring buckets, to be honest. Nothing against you, Mo. Hopefully you see this. But I need you to step up, because I know the intensity he could bring defensively, and I know he can score, provide them, a spark coming off their bench. But I think that's my concern with them. And obviously, kind of already picked it, but I'm going Road Dogs. I just think the experience, and also the matchup earlier in the year. When would we ever see Kevin Views score 3 points? That'll never happen in a Legacy League ever again. I mean, he was 1 for 5, and then also for Shaq Audrey, 9 points. And they missed Devon Bailey, their big man. Anthony Lyles didn't even hit a shot that game. Like, I think things are going to be totally different. And Dell Butler, a lot of these players just wasn't there. They didn't have their team. Credit to obviously Washed-Up boys, because a W is a W. But typically what I always say is, you can beat me in the regular season, but when it matters, I'm going to beat you. And I think this is the time where the Road Dogs are going to come out and compete. And I honestly think it's not going to be close. I think Road Dogs are going to make a statement and end up the Washed-Up boys.
You talked about kind of those slow starts, right? And it's kind of, the score was close throughout that first matchup, and it was tied after the first quarter. But after the second quarter, it was a Washed-Up boys lead, and so this is a little bit of a stretch, but when you're behind after a slow start, or even just behind in general, the threes get a little tighter. You're trying to make some passes maybe you wouldn't normally make. You start to focus more, and sometimes aren't playing your best because you're like playing catch up the whole time. And so if that's what happens with the Washed-Up boys, it's a tough thing to overcome. They can definitely do it, and teams have done it, but it's not ideal, right? You'd rather be playing from front. Playing from in front, playing ahead, because then you're more free. More of the threes are falling because you have that lead. So early start is kind of Trent's key. Like let's talk after the first quarter and kind of see where things are at. The intensity will be there, but we saw it against Lob City. If the shots aren't falling for either team, which is kind of what happened in that first matchup. You talked about Kevin Views and Shaq Ardrey. How does a team adjust in real time to keep that intensity and keep it close, right? Evien, who you got in this one, in this rematch from last summer's semifinal, and who you got and why?
I think Trent said it the best. The Road Dogs really just had a statement first round win, it's really hard to go against a team that everyone shot over 50% from the floor. I do really like the Washed-Up boys. I think they play some really good defense. Especially like Leroy Brown. I think they're all going to make like a really good defensive impact as much as they can, but I don't think you can mess around with the Road Dogs. I think they're just too deep. I think they can hurt you from everywhere. Everyone can score. Anyone really can have a big night, and I'm just going to go with them.
All right, and so I pulled up last season's semifinal matchup. And the Road Dogs had a lead into that third quarter, and it was actually a big third quarter by the Washed-Up boys to kind of semi-flip it. And it was close throughout, so by flip it, I mean kind of get it back even heading into that fourth quarter. But Rion Watts, shout out, the finals MVP, had 21 in that semifinal. Kareem Cooper with 12 and Shaq Archie with 12. But it was a game in the 60s, right? And so I think that's also a key. I think for the Washed-Up boys, in the 60s, in the 70s, it's kind of more their speed, because that means they're able to get those stops and convert and kind of keep it at their pace. I think if it gets up in the 80s and 90s, I think it favors the Road Dogs just for the amount of options they have to kind of keep that scoring going. But Hendel Leroll had 25 in that semifinal, and 5 of 8 from 3. Leroy Brown with 15 last summer, and Jeremy Altuve with 13 and 9. So, it's not to say they aren't tested, Aidan, but this is going to be another great game, and especially, one of the clips that stands out is Leroy kind of putting the finishing touches on that win in the regular season. Semi over Kevin Views, not really. The clip is really a little deceiving, to be honest. It wasn't a poster, but Kevin jumped and was in the area, so take that for what it's worth. But even, Kareem is telling him to calm down, it's the regular season. Right, the Washed Up Boys are going nuts, and rightfully so, because they were at that point going to win that game that was so close. What do you see in this one, Aidan?
So I hopefully will see a good game. We all know playoff basketball can either be great or it can be bad. There's no in between. I'm going to stick with my original prediction of a Lob City Washed Up Boys final. So I'm picking the Washed Up Boys in this. I'm not going to go back on my word. But I think their key is, like you said, is like Trent said, is starting out hot. They have not scored over 75 points at all this season. And like you said, if they can control that to be under that 80 to 70 point threshold with their defense, it's good. Because the Road Dogs, they can score. When the game gets 80 and above, that's Road Dogs territory because they know they're in control. They can continue the shots. And yes, it's a different team from last year, but they still have their main guys. And the Road Dogs on paper are huge. And they have, like we've talked about before, they're the defending champs for a reason. They have 8-9 people deep who can shoot the ball efficiently and make the good plays. But I think that they haven't really experienced a defensive matchup again like the Washed Up Boys from that previous game, because every single person on the Washed Up Boys, whether they're a little shorter, a little bigger, they're going to play 100% the entire time. They'll play defense no matter what. Like I shouted out Tyrone, he's a great perimeter defender. So is Leroy. That's guarding the perimeter, guarding the wing. It's going to be hard to get past them. And then you go in the paint. Yeah, they don't have a really big guy, but they have big bodies. Jeremy's a big body. Mo's a big body. Kayshawn's a big body. And I like to say about Kayshawn last week is he shot 13 threes, a little less than normal, but he also drove in a little bit more. He's a big guy. He's got some muscle, so I'd like to continue to see him drive in. If that's not his game, okay, but just drive in and dish it out. And I just think the key is not losing your composure early on if you're not missing the shots, because that's what happened with Lob City. They only scored 3 or 4 points in the first quarter, and the rest of the game they were deflated. Like I saw a Rick Pitino clip talking about that, and he's like, you miss a shot, that affects everybody else and you deflate. And that is what happened when they met up with Lob City that week. And I think if they're missing the shots, they need to not let it deflate them, and they need to continue to play Washed Up Boys basketball and hopefully get the W this week.
We got some good matchups in the semifinals. I like it. So I think it was a clean... Oh, no. Aidan went Washed Up. Okay. All right. So we got 2 Road Dogs and a Washed Up Boys. We will see. So Tuesday night, starting at 8:15, will be the game we just talked about, Washed Up Boys and the Road Dogs. And then following that game, everything live on YouTube, Lob City and the Cold Hearts. All right. Pushing 53 minutes-ish. So good job, guys. A long show today, but worth it. We will be back next week to break down these games, pick the finals, and probably do maybe some all-star stuff at that point. It's coming. End-of-season awards are coming. Don't spoil anything, people on this show. You did good today, but we have some things that are in the works that are not announced yet, but are coming. So Aidan, Trent, Evien, good job. I'm Joey, everybody. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for top plays, highlights, everything on social. Stats are up. And the playoffs roll on with the semifinals coming up from Warwick, Rhode Island on Tuesday night. Guys, good job, and everybody, thanks for watching.